Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy here, for Nerds by Nerds, hanging out with the crew.
I'm Ted.
I'm Nate.
And today we have a viewer request from Seth Weber. He asked about adding players into the middle of a session.
It can be tricky, and I've been involved in all kinds of manners of it happening.
Because it happens a lot.
Because it can happen a lot. You know, if you're adding a brand new player, it's...
Before we even start, can I tell my favorite one that I did? Okay, so we... you know where this is going, don't you? So we had a player that really liked to play with us, and we liked having him at our table, but he was very inconsistent.
This is awesome.
And so what I did was, I think he wasn't actually here for the first session.
Right.
Now, do you remember what the item was?
It was a disc.
A disc, okay. So it was like a disc, like an amulet or something that one of my other players had in the group.
Yeah, I was actually the one that carried it because I was always there.
Well, yeah, so Ted carried this disc, and every once in a while, it would randomly spit this guy out of it.
He was a dwarf.
Yeah. I don't remember his character. All I remember was, I needed a solution for this player that wouldn't show up all the time. And, like, you're in the middle of a dungeon, how do you have this player come into the story and leave the story and not have someone else control the character, which I hate, or just, or just having them
forget about him off in the corner.
Yeah, they're all very unsatisfying. So I came with this solution that he would randomly be expelled and sucked back into this magic disc that Ted's character carried. So that was one thing that I came up with over the years.
It was utterly fantastic. It was this crazy dwarf who was literally cursed, and we came upon this disc and we studied it and whatever else, and all of a sudden this dwarf literally just magically appears out of it. It was great. I think it was to this day was the best solution for having that
inconsistent player. I'm gonna put you on the spot, Ted. Can you think of one of the times you've had to add a player in the middle and how you've done it?
Add a player, I as a DM, I haven't had much use or much issue with that. I've encountered as a player where people have been found as a prisoner in a dungeon or wherever they are. You've had people that are just wandering by, and it's like, okay, chance encounter.
There was the recent one with me.
In my game, Nate and Mark and Scott didn't, they weren't at a previous session, and normally with my Griffin Gaff game, I've been having it start and end in town, and for one reason or another, I ended outside of town, and I didn't want these guys missing out on the actual interaction and missing out on RP time. So I was like, well, how am I going to get them in? And my initial thing was I was just going to have you guys role play with the prisoner that you guys released and get you back to town and get everyone together. Nate and I talked. And he's like,
we foresaw the problem. Like, hey, we're coming into this session and we weren't there last time.
So he's like, well, this is what my character does. What about this situation? So I wound up having him already on the road with his own story going on. And he came upon the trail because he was also looking for the character or his main quest was looking for the character that you guys rescued.
I was going to meet him and then escort him to the city
because he wanted the exclusive merchanting rights and this and that.
We were going to have lots of discussions on the way.
So
I was going to schmooze with him.
Right. So it was a way of me to say, well, it wasn't adding a character, mid-session, but it was mid-story.
And Scott, he's gifted me with a magic item. It was a failed magic item, but still magic. It does something. And he creates magic stuff. So it's like he's a perfect candidate to meet this other magic-creating guy. So it's like, well, Scott, I can't remember his character name, but he's a mage, and he made stuff, magical stuff.
Asen.
Asen. And you're Arbalason.
Yeah.
Mark's character,
he was going to be the muscle for our expedition, but Mark didn't show up, so we just said, all right, well, we're still... we're strapping young men. We can make it.
A cleric and a wizard.
It's a trail. What's going to happen? I mean, this caravan gets totally messed up. So I'm glad we didn't get hit with that. So we're
possibly go wrong.
We're two mages trying to. I mean, we're mage and a cleric. Yeah, two casters trying to like not look at the trail, and we totally missed the trail of the wagon veering off. So we're like, dum 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 dum. We make it to the town, and we have to backtrack because he's like, oh, we already left. I was like, well, we didn't see him on the road. Something must have happened. So we come back and we're really looking carefully at the offshooting things, and looking for scuffle and stuff, and we see that the trail goes off the side. So we go up the hill, and there we are.
So the important thing here is, since everyone is here, to role play at the table. There are times where I think it's better to have a little bit of cheese than it is to wait for a grand effect. Everyone who has played D&D has done the. You're at you start the campaign off, you're in a tavern, the campaign goes from there.
Or you meet each other on the road, you're like, hello, adventurer, how are you? You're like, would you like to come with us to this place since you're a PC? It's happened before. But hey, I think I made it very convincing and uncheesy, because I would absolutely have done that and gone off as that character.
And for that particular character, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It required a little bit of workaround with me providing information for your character. It goes back to another video where we talked about open communication between GMs and players, which is definitely important. I feel getting the characters into the story and being together is important. So some things I think it can be rushed.
On a related topic, we've all played in those sessions where the DM feels the need to introduce each character individually, and like if you're the last one, like you may spend half to 3/4 of the night just sitting there waiting, and that's not any fun for anyone. So so this correlates to introducing characters in mid-session as well, because the idea is you want everyone playing and having fun as soon as possible. If you're going back and forth between people, you want it to be like two groups at most.
Right.
So it keeps everyone kind of into action.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. I recently, my ongoing game, Nate had joined, and I said, well, how do you feel about playing like this, or that? And he's like, oh, that works. I haven't played any of those yet, so I'm definitely open to that. And I said, well, good, that works, because this is how it's going to happen, and I think within 5 to 10 minutes, you entered into the game.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't too long.
From not even having a character a few hours beforehand, like a written down, that's good.
Yeah, matter of fact, it's like it's on one of our live plays. We can go see how long it took, but I want to say like 10 minutes after the opening preamble. Yeah. So. That being said, I just went with something simple. Like, it was a wilderness encounter. He was a wilderness character, and he's, hears the sounds of combat and battle and investigates.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be really complicated.
And the important thing is I went with things I had wanted to play, but I also went with what was going to be beneficial to actually get into the game.
Right.
So... I went with I wanted to play sorcerer, and I was like, well, I'll slap barbarian on that to make it so that I'm dragonborn. I was thinking dragonborn as well, so I slapped all those things that I had never played before together, and I gave it a try.
Well, and that being said, you came on the scene and you're like, oh, these two things are clearly monsters, and these are people.
Yeah.
So like I'm a people too, so I side with people usually.
Yeah.
And over the years, there's been all kinds of. I've done all kinds of crazy things. I've had people like fall into traps that kind of led to wherever the players are.
The shoots and ladder method.
Yeah,
of finding each other in the dungeon.
Yeah, there are literally limitless possibilities of how you can add or remove players to the game, and it really should be. It's going to require a little bit of thinking on the part of the GM, but I don't see a problem with, having to think on your feet and just let it happen.
I have a player who actually had to leave due to school conflict with they just had so much work that it was just like I can't be in the game anymore. So she's only in a few sessions. Well, I had her removed. It just happens to be that she's a Azamar, so it was really easy. A person that captures planar creatures to want to capture the Azamar. So that was like really convenient. Well, she's going to appear at some point. She might be 10th level by the time she actually gets to come back, but she's going to come back at some point, and it's really just going to be her. She's been on this incredible journey, and that I'm going to talk about with her, and then she's just going to show up one way or the other. I mean, if it's high enough level, she might teleport to the party. But they're kind of looking for her in the background. They're not on a specific quest to go get her. They tried, but they failed at it, and it was good because otherwise I was going to figure out how to explain that you couldn't get a hold of her, even though it may look like you succeeded at it. So anyway, she's going to come back, but I'm going to have her come back in like a very natural way, like from a long journey kind of thing. Like she escaped and she's on a ship, or she just gets a farmer's wagon cart ride back to town. Hoping that everybody's there, and everybody happens to be there. So we'll work it out, before the session, the day before or whatever, when she knows she's going to come back. We'll talk about what she's done and what's happened, but kind of like catch her up to speed and then plop her back down into the campaign, whichever which way figures out. Because I've got 6 months to a year worth of time to say what happened, we can lead it to that direction. Similarly, as long as you don't pick a really weird counterintuitive character that could fit in with the rest of the party, you're going to have an ease at which, well, what have you been doing for the past 6 months? Well, those decisions have led you to this spot for some reason.
Right.
And then you just need some reason.
Yeah, you just need to figure out that one little bit that's going to make it plausible that you're there and that you'd actually, interact with the party in a beneficial way.
And I think that important, thing, that one reason, that one thing is the only thing that you need. So communication back and forth between the player and the GM, be it at the start of a game, be it at somewhere in the middle of the game, or having a player removed, somewhere in there, between sessions or during a session. It's very easy to work with that one piece of information and say this is why it makes sense for this to happen.
I think most players too they're going to be amicable to whatever you come up with that's going to get them in the game faster.
Right.
Yeah.
We've talked to DMs, and I've been a part of a game where the GM would meet with every player for like 1 to 2 sessions individually and work through this whole huge story to get them from their backstory to exactly where they want them. And that kind of thing can be incredible, but unless you are blessed with that kind of DM and limitless time, that kind of thing's not going to happen all that often.
It's difficult, yes.
Google Hangouts and all the different online things increase the likelihood of something like that, but it is exhausting on the DM, and it's much easier just to be like, all right, you're on an in. There's much better ways to do it, but as you said, most players want to get into the action and things that are going to allow that to happen faster, and enjoying the rich story together as opposed to little pieces individually, I think is going to make for a better tale.
So, a quick synopsis, right? So, basically, you can do weird stuff like they were in a magic item, or, a teleport goes awry, because I've used both of those.
Oh, so yeah, I was thinking.
They don't have to have that power. It can just be a trap.
It could be a trap. It could be anything. It could be they're trying to go somewhere and it went awry. You could do like Ted said. You've come across a prisoner and you recover, someone that way, and they join the game that way. The player could have a coinciding goal as the group, so they've actually been following the group, and they finally run into them. Is another way. Anytime you can like link up the goals like that, that's really easy, because then, not only that, but they also have to be goals that are coincide with each other and they're not at odds, right. Or at least obviously so in the beginning, right. So you can at least get them working together in some cooperation. You could you could have the person sent by a third party for some reason. That may may have connections to the group. So, like, you know, basically it's almost like a referral. Well, so-and-so sent me.
Right.
Oh, well, if you're friends with so-and-so, you're friends with me.
Come
you know?
on.
Yeah.
If you have a patron, that's really good.
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
if you're religious, the church sent you. So that covers cleric and paladins. You know, if you're magic oriented, well, the academy sent you. They want you to, you know, all this information. The town guard sent you. That can cover rangers, rogues, fighters, you know. So it's very easy to just be like,
If you're associated with a particular organization, perhaps a druid circle.
Right.
And, you know, if that would cover like a ranger or a barbarian or another druid even.
Yeah.
Or nature priest. Been like, you know, there's been a vision or visions and prophecies also.
Yeah.
Also really good ways. Visions, prophecies, and dreams are another way to kind of set that character in motion to do it, to do what you want them to do, and give them information they might not normally have access to.
Absolutely.
To do it.
So basically, they're saying if it works for any best-selling offer, that'll work for you.
Yes, absolutely. Steal, beg, and borrow from wherever you can to make it happen.
Absolutely.
And you know, lastly, I will just say this: if you cannot come up with a good reason, just throw them in there and worry about the reason later. Worry about the story later. Like, you know, I used to, you know, like many DMs, be so concerned about the story I'm telling. But you know what? I'm not a best-selling author, and my stories aren't that great. You know, we have fun, we enjoy the game, but I don't think the GM or DM should put their story above the fun of the players. Mm-hmm. And you know, I would much rather sacrifice that little piece of continuity in the story to get another player at the table having fun.
Right. Yes.
It's just my opinion.
Because, you know, if you got players that aren't having fun at your table, they're only going to mess it up for everybody else.
Well, boredom is going to breed disruption.
And dissension.
One last little thing. Okay, like let's say they're a prisoner or something in a dungeon, and you have a combat in between when the player's going to get to play and where all the rest of the players are now. Guess what? That combat's going to take longer than you estimate. All the time, pretty much. That's what I feel like. So, I mean, you could be like, oh, you just need to defeat all these guys, and then you'll find out one of the prisoners is one of the players or whatever, or he'll free himself and come help. Well, an hour and a half goes by, and lo and behold, you're finally done that encounter. So I say, like, that's one of the things that I try and stay away from is if they've got combat in between when they're going to meet that person, unless the person's going to join in the combat, don't do it.
Yeah,
right.
Because it will take too long.
I would have it be where like the people are in cages, you know, in the same room. Like if you absolutely have to have the combat, you know, where you know they're going to free a prisoner, then have that person be in the same room and be able to be like, hey guys, come free me and I can help. You know?
They could do that, or he could be busting out a cousin or something. Maybe he found a back way in, and he's like, "Oh, this is a great distraction." Well, these guys then is like, "There's a fight," so he's going to join in most likely. So that's kind of, but make it so the person can participate in some fashion because otherwise it's a really boring way of watching everyone roll dice.
Well, yeah, and the other thing too is if you start with a combat like that, it automatically kind of binds everyone together. Like you have a joint goal.
Yeah, it's a shared experience.
So like
it's like going to like the diner with everybody.
You guys may not know each other, may not be friends, but what you do know is that guy over there is definitely the enemy.
Yeah.
You know, and then you can kind of hammer out the details afterwards. So I mean, off the cuff, that's just a handful of ways you can do things. Guys, down in the comments, how would you do it? Feel free to share your DM secrets with us. While you're at it, like, subscribe, and share.
You can come over to nerdarchy.com and check out the store and get all your Nerdarchy swag.
You can also join the conversation over on Reddit.
So until next time, stay nerdy.